So it is my absolute very great pleasure to welcome Bill Pfeiffer, also known as Sky Otter, author of Wild Earth, Wild Soul. He is a shamanic guide and a spiritual coach, and also the founder of Sacred Earth Network. So I'll leave it to Bill. I'll hand it over to Bill to tell us more about what he's up to. Welcome, Bill.
Good to see you, and good to see everybody. You're the audience, and that's great. There's actually people here instead of just talking to a screen. So I'm really thrilled to give this presentation. One little thing that Nurit didn't mention in the short intro was that I've spent a lot of time with Native peoples in Siberia and this country and Central America. And so to give a talk like this, I hope to bring some experience to bear to that. And we're going to talk more about that in a second. The first thing is defining terms. So for me, human potential is about the fact that we're an exploratory species, and we have a vast sense of what is possible. And yet a guy named George Leonard did a survey back in the 60s. He was somebody that first coined the term human potential. And he interviewed something like 50 or 60 different scientists, anthropologists, and so forth. And they said, we're only using about 10% of our capacity. So there's 90% there. And I'm really interested in that 90%, because I think it's that 90%, which is the difference between us being able to thrive on this planet or being yet another species. And all species come and go at some point, but we're the new kids on the block. And it would be a shame to see us kind of self-destruct so quickly. So the other defining term here is indigeneity. And, what's this white guy from Brooklyn talking about indigeneity? And I think what I want to say is that we're all indigenous if we go back far enough in our ancestry. And we all come from earth honoring cultures. And we all have a deep, profound, embedded connection to the earth, even if we don't recognize it, even if we're not practicing it. There's something about our original instructions on planet Earth that we can never remove entirely. And so a lot of what I'll be saying is how we can remember this indigeneity and how critically important it is. So I want to start with a story here, is that this talk is intensely personal for me. What I'm saying isn't just kind of like, oh, it sounds like a good idea, or it's a new intellectual construct. What I see here is how back in 1998, I was very concerned about, what is it that I'm doing with my work. I've spent a good 10 years being at kind of an activist orientation at Sacred Earth Network. Even though we had that beautiful name, Sacred Earth Network, our work was very much centered around stopping this and stopping that and preventing this and preventing that. And as we all know, that needs to happen. But I wanted to go deeper. And so me and a friend went out to Canyonlands in Utah, and this happens to be Salt Creek Canyon from probably a drone's eye view, and spent 4 days fasting and praying. And I I had really been studying about this thing called the Vision Quest, and I had talked to some elders about and agreed that I wasn't going to be able to figure out what was going to happen in my work life. I wanted to just really, really sink in deep and see what the earth wanted to tell me. So sort of what would you call it, in a nonplussed sort of way, I spent 4 days out there. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was beautiful. My buddy Jeffrey, he was about a quarter of a mile away, and we agreed we'd meet up at the end. And like nothing happened. There were nothing, no words from on high. And so we went back to this place, this motel in Moab, Utah. And it's just kind of has always made me laugh. We went to the Prospector's Lodge, and I went to sleep, and 2 hours later, boom, I just get this kind of woken up by this technicolor dream of wow, this woman is in this, I can't really make out her face, but she's like a native elder, and her name is Maria. And the feeling of the dream is like, this is really big here on planet Earth. Like, this is not fooling around. And you need to understand that passing on the ways of the earth is critically important. And there were some other instructions there, but after she finished saying that, I kind of turned and looked out on a similar landscape as this, and in my mind's eye, and I just had this beautiful feeling that came over me, and I see a vision of peace, that there was this quite dramatic and almost scary sense of what was going on the planet, and then a kind of opening things up, that things would return into balance and into peace. And then the next line was, I see the warriors of the rainbow remembering who they are. And I had sort of heard romantically who the rainbow warriors are, and then I realized it actually comes from a Cree, CREE, tribe prophecy. And the way it's been recorded is, there would come a time when the keepers of the legends, stories, rituals, and myths, and all the ancient tribal customs did to restore the earth and her children to health. They were the warriors of the rainbow. So, so hi, fellow warriors of the rainbow. If you're listening to this, you're a part of this. And, obviously the critical piece of this vision was passing on this sense that there's something very, very ancient that has tremendous survival value, and that it wasn't something that we could just either romanticize or subordinate someplace else. For me, worldview is everything. We're swimming in worldview all the time, whether we know it or not. And so, we can just take a look and read this through. When the blood in your veins returns to the sea, and the earth in your bones returns to the ground, perhaps then you will remember that this land does not belong to you. It is you who belong to this land. So, we've been, all of us, native, non-native, if you've grown up in the dominant paradigm, you've got to relearn this. There's unless you're in some kind of uncontacted tribe in the middle of the Amazon somewhere, you've had a heavy boot on you to think in the dominant way. So it takes energy and effort not to be brainwashed, and we've been brainwashed, so we're spending a lot of time learning a very ancient way of perceiving the world. It's interconnected, it's full of meaning, and I think the part of the worldview that is most moving to me, and it's the one that personally I'm moving more and more into standing, is everything is kin. We are family, us human beings, brothers and sisters, but also the tree beings, the rock beings, the animal beings, the star beings. Everything is family. And I think that this is this is critically important to be viewing the world this way. And it's sort of sad, but I said to myself, well, I'm going to be laying out this worldview that's abundant and numinous, and it's full of relationships, and you could even say it has a magical quality to it. And this is again how we looked at things, how we viewed life, how we looked at things thousands of years ago, and maybe even earlier than that. And so I'm saying, well, why have we forgotten this? Why don't we know this? So I just, I look back at some of the research I did for my book, and it's like Christianity, certainly in Western civilization, has made quite the impression. And so I thought I would read the first part of Genesis. God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. So, that's quite the indoctrination right there that was then hammered in for a couple of thousand years. And, and then we look back and we get to the Middle Ages, and worldview is changing. Science starts to make some inroads. It's kind of the feudal period. It's coming. The so-called Age of Enlightenment is coming in, and the viewpoint, the worldview is mechanistic. It's machine-like. It's broken down into pieces, and a guy named Descartes, Newton, and so forth, and a guy named Bacon, Francis Bacon. He saw us as masters and possessors of science, as rendering us the masters and possessors of nature. So I, what I'm suggesting with this presentation is that even though a lot of us kind of know better, that's the world that by and large we're still swimming in. And it's not only a dominant worldview, it's a dominator worldview. And it's a world of scarcity and competition. And quite frankly, it's a world of fear. And it's where we've got power over and not power within. And so, before I move on to the last slide, I'd say that the indigenous worldview is really about the great power in Lakota, Wakataka. The great power is within. It's not without. It's not our ability to push other people and other species around. So, one of the amazing things about when you start looking at indigeneity and what does it mean to be indigenous is that you see certain themes that pop up all over the world. Can everybody see that these are from all over the planet? And it's essentially, it's the same spiral figure. Is that clear to everybody? Just give me your thumbs up. Yeah, okay, good. So, why am I throwing this slide in? Mention everything being kin. Well, the stars are kin. That they're actually there's a whole cosmological viewpoint in the indigenous tradition, which includes the star nations. And so why am I bringing that up? Because if we're talking about human potential and we're really starting to look in the 20th and 21st century, we're really starting to talk about space travel, and we're thinking about going out there as part of human potential. We've known about outer space through inner space for a long time, and I could spend the whole rest of this talk basically talking about petroglyphs and archaeoastronomy. And I think when we see the spiral, there's a certain kind of mystery there that points to that 90% that may be unused in human potential. And it's also fascinatingly part of the spiral of the DNA, part of our original instructions. So I mentioned before that in the feudal period and the beginning of science, when we were, looking at a worldview that had human beings apart and separate from the natural world, this started to get questioned seriously at the beginning of the 20th century. Throughout the 20th century. And, when I look at these three guys' names, Wade Davis, John Perkins, and Richard Evans Schultz, I get excited about the fact that they basically said, this is crazy. This idea that that indigenous people are savages and that we're all really kind of apart from the environment. This is nuts, and we want to take a much closer look at how Native peoples view the world. And so these three guys, if I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but they spent their time in the Amazon. But there are hundreds of others, Siberians, Australians, Africans, not necessarily native to those countries, but who went there to say, I want to listen. And that's kind of a key phrase here. I want to listen. I want to be a part of how these people are living and how they're seeing the world. If you haven't read any of these guys, they're just absolutely brilliant and providing a very strong intellectual foundation for our path back or our relearning of indigeneity. Obviously the native peoples themselves, and I'll get to that, are the first word, the primary source. But it's good that these folks acted as kind of translators to the Western, at first, academic tradition, but then it's spread out. So somebody who did an incredible amount of synthesis is this guy named Thomas Berry, who inspired a lot of us. He was a theologian turned geologian, and his book, I have it on my bookshelf, The Dream of the Earth. It just blew me away. I felt like here was somebody that completely understood the experiences that I was having and put it into a context that where I saw how to play my own personal role. And interestingly, as I'm giving this talk, I'm thinking that it was the vision quest that solidified what he was saying a little bit earlier to me. And I really enjoy reading this. You may have read it already, but I'd like to repeat it. So one of the significant historical roles of the primal peoples of the world is not simply to sustain their own traditions, but to call the entire civilized world back to a more authentic mode of being. Our only hope, and those are his italics, is in a renewal of those primordial experiences out of which the shaping of our more sublime human qualities could take place. Our only hope. So, I was a young guy when I first read that book, but that sure left an impression on me. So now we get to the more like fun part of this presentation, which is that if you see a world that is animated, alive, and free, interconnected, and it's full of meaning, and it's in balance, you can say this is an ecstatic way of looking at things, and it's an ecstatic universe. And one of the tricky things that I learned is that ecstasy is not bliss. We're not talking about kind of a one-sided view of reality. The ecstatic universe, the ecstatic way of looking at things from an indigenous perspective, is that we're profoundly one with our experience. We're profoundly one with all that is happening within the present moment, and that this is, as far as human potential goes, this is something as a species that we've experienced, and it's something we can return to. So, something I may not have emphasized or underlined in the earlier part of the talk is that this isn't some it's not some new intellectual formulation of something that sounds very pretty. This is something based on maybe 100,000 years of experiences, of which mostly we lived as hunter-gatherers. And this view of the world was our primary view. Again, it doesn't mean we don't get frightened. It doesn't mean we don't run away from saber-toothed tigers. It's just that we're one with our experience. So, another question is, why am I bothering with this? And as I said earlier, we all know that humans presently, as a species, almost 8 billion strong, we're on an ecocidal plunge, and any thinking person who's paying attention, we're looking at the jaws of collapse. So, and on the other hand, we have this untapped potential. And, for my money, I want to put everything I have into untapping that potential. And I'm going to use not only the indigenous worldview, but indigenous practices to re-experience what I've been talking about. So this first quote is from my main native teacher. He's quite passed away about 10 years ago. But he used to give talks at science conferences where there was this comparison between native and native shamanic understanding of the world with science. And everybody loved him. He was brilliant. So he says, you non-natives outnumber us 10 to 1, and you're not going anywhere. So you better figure this out. And so that's what I see so many of us doing right now. And, there's what Terence McKenna called an archaic revival, where we're looking deep into our origins. Another teacher of mine, Oscar Mira Casada, he said, our destiny is in our origins. And I love that that phrase, our destiny is in our origins. And so again, human potential is infinite and everything we need is already here and now. The worldview, the dominator worldview says it's scarce, everything's scarce. There's not enough to go around. There's lots of reasons to fear, and that we need to be constantly consuming to lead satisfactory lives. And what else? What other heaven could we possibly have been given but this Earth, Mother Earth, the natural world as it is here right now? So about whatever, I don't remember how long it was, but I started to, I was thinking about my, I reflected on my vision quest for quite a bit, and so that phrase, remember and pass on the ways of the earth, it would kind of go, I get it back, it would come and go in my mind. And I had given lots of smaller workshops, weekend workshops, maybe 4 or 5 days at the most. And after one of them, I was so inspired. And it was kind of the spirit saying to me, okay, here's what you got to do. You got to write a book. And you got to write a book based on providing a firsthand experience of what this whole indigenous soul, indigeneity thing is all about. And so we simultaneously was writing the book, did the several 10-day Wild Earth intensives, and they were based on spending 10 days with each one of these core ingredients that I learned from being with Siberians, being with Native Americans, and just really reading my ass off about tribes in Australia and the South Pacific, and going into museums and really saying, what is this thing that is going through my veins here? And this is the, this is, to me, this is the gold. And that, as we're teaching our children as we go on, we're not just teaching them these things as concepts, we're teaching them as lived experiences, and that there is such magic and a profound deepening of our understanding as human beings as we go through this medicine wheel. And certainly to this day, I'm doing my best to take part in all of these things, and I rarely get a chance to have them happen in a super compressed form. But I think I want to put in a plug here for not necessarily the Wild Earth Intensive that is led and where I'll train other people to do it, but that the point of the book was to get you all to do this, and to really remember that, we all know this is in our blood. It's just a matter of practice. So that's the point. Practice, 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 practice. So many people have come to, the Wild Earth Intensives, and, they give glowing testimonials, and I have a little video that was done about it. But this one just sort of jumped out, and I'm not gonna read it out loud. You all can read fine, but it really, it touched me deep, because in this testimonial, she's saying exactly what I've been blabbing about here for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And it's kind of, for me, this is like the proof in the pudding. So I'll just give you a chance to read it. Isn't that sweet? Sweet and powerful. Getting down to the end here. And, so part of, or maybe a big piece of indigeneity, it's not just the cultural aspects, it's the physical aspects as well. It's how are we going to make our physical presence known with nature in a way that is has a lot less of a heavy footprint. And we need to start somewhere, and the means and the ends are really, really congruent. And this little photo is at the next to the last day of a Wild Earth intensive, and it has that numinous magical quality to it, of which it really was. So I guess in closing here, I was, I like kind of the sacred four, and I was, I wondered why compassion kept tugging at me to put down as a C word. And I think that, as we're going kind of deeper into this journey between whether or not we're able to kind of pull this out of the fire and go into an ecological age from the Anthropocene into a truly green world, return to the green world. We just need to have a lot of compassion for our brothers and sisters. I just think it's really important to realize how fearful the worldview is that we live in. Just look at the news. It's just, it's filled with fear. So, we do our best to walk in beauty and cultivate compassion to the best of our ability, because it's, this is not an easy road. We need to practice even pieces of this, even if it's as simple as saying, I commit to going outside and having a reciprocal, sensitive relationship with a tree, that whatever it is, wherever we can be, to, as Sheila said, this is kind of we're not separate. This is already in us. This is who we are. So it's more like, and I think this is a good example. We can go outside, we can go to a cloud, a sky, the mountains, wherever we are, and we just say, like, can you help me here? Can you help me to know that I'm not separate? And so I want to make it really bite-sized, even though when I did the slide of let's get going, I'm really challenging. Let's say, look, there's about 10 of us on the screen, that we meet together in a medicine circle and practice those things that are on the medicine wheel, the story, the play, the listening to our elders and mentors, and most of all, reconnecting with nature and really learning about nature. So that's I'd say that the absolute main point of this talk is that talk is cheap, and that we need to get down to it and learn this, relearn this, as Sheila said, relearn it inside of our bodies.
So, Bill, a last word, just a last thought, or are we feeling complete? How are we doing?
I just want to repeat what I said in the very beginning, which is that We're all indigenous if we go far back enough in our ancestry, original instructions. This isn't something, farfalutin. This is as close as our breath, as close as the food that we eat. And we can reclaim this. And I'm thrilled that, this isn't, it's not rocket science. It's right here in our hearts. So that's how I'd like to end up. And thanks again, Nurit, for this opportunity.
Right here in our hearts is exactly where I love to keep us, let's keep that thought with us as we go back into our work days and our busyness of our lives. And let's not forget to play. Thank you, Bill.